4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, hello, hello. Good night and good morning, dear audience. This is the last interview of the day, but this is something exciting that no one has spoken about it yet at this summit. So I'm really, really excited about Kim and the topic that she brought to us. You have to know how this was born. This whole process is that I was asking everyone for one topic that they would like to talk about during the summit, and everyone was bringing it up by themselves. So here we are. That's why we have this diverse global empowerment summit. So Kim, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you, Andrea. How are you?
All good, all good. Finishing up the day. After you, we go to Clubhouse, and then after that, I would have a little bit of rest, and I have four more days to go.
Oh, bless you. It's been quite a marathon, but what an exciting journey. It's been a delight to be part of it. And obviously this is the second opportunity I've had to talk, but it's been really interesting listening to all the other people and getting their perspectives, because I think we learn so much when we listen to each other, don't we?
Yes, we do, and we share experiences, and it's giving us new combinations. That's how ideas are born, right? So, Kim, your topic is very specific. So let's talk about it, because we have around like 20 minutes to talk about it. So, overcoming imposter syndrome. And to talk about this, first we have to figure out what exactly is imposter syndrome.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So imposter syndrome was originally identified back in 1978, and it was originally identified as a female-only phenomenon. But they've now identified over the years that actually it's not gender specific. It can happen to any one of us. And actually it happens to about 70% of us globally at some point in our life. And it's those moments where we start to doubt ourselves, where we might have got an accolade, we might have got the job, we might have the career, we might have, but you're like, oh, I don't think I deserve it. I don't think it's me. If only they knew that I wasn't worthy of this, then it would get taken away. And it's been called imposter syndrome. But I often wonder whether or not it's actually more about being a symptom of being an insecure overachiever, because you tend not to feel like an imposter until you've achieved something you didn't really expect. And I know this, having suffered myself for 20 odd years, I made it to the board in FTSE 250s and was convinced that because I'm an ex-hairdresser, they were going to turn around one day and go, oh my goodness, we put the hairdresser on the board. That's a bit awkward. Get her off. But it never happened. But that was my belief. And it didn't matter what award I won. It didn't matter what accolade I got. It didn't matter what job I was given. I used to turn around and go, if only they knew, just a hairdresser, just a little bit hopeless, I don't have the qualifications, I shouldn't be here, then actually it would get taken away. And it's a really hard thing to live with, because your biggest fear is that you get found out to be a fraud. So outwardly, you're trying to pretend that you know what you're doing, that you're really competent, that you've got this. And inwardly, you're having a dialogue in your head going, you don't deserve to be there. They're going to find you out. You're going to look stupid. And you end up having that conversation in your head, hoping none of it comes out of your mouth at the wrong time, because you're like, no, don't say any of those things. And it's really, really hard. And for me, my biggest breakthrough came with my little girl. So I remember going in one day. She was about 9 months old, and I'd found out that I had got an illness that I wasn't certain I was going to survive. And I went to write the letter to give her all of the advice, all the love, all of the support that I hoped to have given her in her life in case I didn't make it. And I went to start, and I was like, where'd you start that letter? Where do you? So I remember creeping up to her room and opening the door thinking, I'll get inspiration, I'll just look at her. And there she was, fast asleep, teddy under her arm, snoring, thinking about her day. And it hit me in that moment that the voice we talk to ourselves becomes the voice we teach our children to talk to themselves. And quite simply, it felt like the world stopped, or at least my heart, because I know how evil I've been to myself for a lot of years. And I didn't want that to be the legacy I left my little girl. And so I vowed that if I survived, I would go and do the research. I would find out why I chose to be so cruel to myself. And how could I change that? What could I do differently to make sure that I didn't leave that as the legacy to my little girl? And that's the first I'd ever really heard of imposter syndrome. Prior to that, I just thought I was incompetent. So it was lovely when I had a label. I was like, brilliant, I've got a label. Other people feel like this. I'm not in it on my own. That makes me feel a little bit less strange. But then as you started to really dig into it, it made me realize that we sit on a bit of a confidence spectrum. So when you're really suffering from imposter syndrome, you can't see how good you are. So people tell you you're really good at something, and your belief is that you're not, that you don't deserve it, that you're not worthy. But then on the other end of the confidence spectrum is where you believe you're brilliant at something, and the reality is you're not, which is often the Dunning-Kruger effect. And I think we swing somewhere in this confidence spectrum. You know, when I'm making beans on toast, I don't feel too much of an imposter. I'm pretty much okay with that. But when I'm stood up talking to people, I start to go, have you got anything valid to say? Are you going to be able to add any value here? So I started to look into, where does it come from? Why do we get it? And more importantly, how do we change it? And it got me really researching it quite deeply. And what I identified is that we come up with what I call I am statements. And these are things that we say about ourselves that normally we've formed by the age of 7. We have enforced by the age of 14, and we've embedded them by the age of 21. So for me, mine were, I'm not good enough, I'm always alone, and I'm unlovable. And they became the blueprint to the backstory of my life. Whatever happened, if anything went wrong, it was, I was okay. I knew that because I wasn't livable, or I knew that because I wasn't good enough, or I knew that because I wasn't alone. So it gave me a sense package to pull them back to. But the reality is they weren't true. And what happens is you create this belief, and then every time something goes wrong, it becomes like another leg on the table of your belief. And before you know it, you've got the most stable table you're ever going to have. But the beauty is you can change the table. So what I'd learnt was, when I first tell myself I can't do something, I have to learn to acknowledge it and go, okay, so I can get this wrong. Public speaking is a great example for me. When I first did my pretty much first ever standing up in front of hundreds of people, it was about 25 years ago now, showing my age. And I was introducing a new charity credit card for one of the banks in the UK. And I told this 480 people that one of the charities we were supporting was Imperial Leather, which is clearly a soap and not a charity. And I meant Imperial Cancer. And I remember standing there going, I can't believe you just said something that stupid. And despite the fact 25 years on, I've done a lot of public speaking and I've never said anything that daft again. Every time I speak, I have this little voice going, don't say Imperial Leather. Don't embarrass yourself. Hi, Jasmine. So instead, you kind of really get into that kind of, how do I make sure that I don't do that? So now what happens is I've learned that our subconscious brain is the happiest little helper we're ever going to have in our life. But it has one flaw. It doesn't understand the difference between helping or harming. So whatever we tell it, it thinks is important to us. So if you say, I am not good at public speaking, it runs back into the library of your brain and it brings back all of the examples where you've got it wrong, where you've said something stupid, where you forgot what you were going to say, where you dried up, whatever it was that you did wrong. It'll find for you and it'll go, here you go, yeah, you're right. You are not good at this. So that's kind of step one. You can't ignore that piece. You can't go past it. You've got to go through it. So you have to go, okay, fair enough, I can get it wrong. Then you ask yourself out loud, are there any examples where I get it right, where I'm good at speaking or I'm good at whatever it is you're asking it to do? Because again, what happens is it runs back into the library of your mind and it now comes back with all of the times where people wrote and thanked you and told you about what they'd actually done as a result of what you'd said, or how it inspired them to do something different, or it motivated them to actually go and try something they'd not tried before. So you can look at it and you go, okay, so I can get this wrong, but I can get it right. So on this new fact base, what choice am I going to make? Because it's all about our choices. And for me, and this third step is my favorite, I am a really biased mum. I'm going to own up to that. I believe that as long as my little girl is kind and she tries her hardest, there is nothing in the world that little girl can't do. And we all have somebody in our life that's like that to us. So my third step is, if this were Scarlett, if this opportunity were in front of her, what advice would I give her? Well, as a biased mum, I would say, try your hardest, be kind, and what's the worst that can happen? If it goes wrong, you will learn from it, but it might go right. So give it a try. And if that's the advice I'd give the most important person in my world, it has to be the advice I would take, because children don't learn by what we say alone. They learn by what we say and what we do. So now I have these 3 steps in my head. I acknowledge what's going on. I ask myself if there's an alternative. And then I say, if this were Scarlett, what would I do? And that's enabled me to go and do things I would never have dreamt of doing. If you'd have asked me 3 or 4 years ago to come and do this, I would have come up with 1,000,001 excuses as to why I couldn't possibly sit in front of people and talk about this. But actually, it's allowed me to, with 2 of my co-founders, so Nat Schooler and Lisa Ventura, this year we launched the first ever International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day, because there wasn't one. And that's kind of the irony of imposter syndrome, is the first step to recovery is to share it. And yet when you're in the throes of it, the thought of anybody finding out is terrifying. It holds you back. It's the biggest fear that you've got. So you're certainly not going to talk about it, because then they'll definitely know that you're an imposter. But what I've learned is that when you give yourself permission to share some vulnerability, then actually what it does is it allows other people to be able to share their vulnerability, and then together you can grow. And I guess what I really started to look at when I had my little girl's 5 this month, bless her, where's that gone? But I started watching how children learn, because if I would say to you, Andrea, or to a fabulous audience that are giving us their time, tomorrow morning when you wake up, you're going to have to learn how to walk or talk or run or jump or skip, you'd be overwhelmed. We would all be overwhelmed. And yet at our most vulnerable, we learnt it. So I said, well, why is that? Why at our most vulnerable are we able to do it? And in my opinion, it comes down to 3 things. The first is, as human beings, we're social animals. We want to do what everybody else does. You can run, jump, walk, skip, talk. I want to do it because I want to be like you. The second is, I don't really know yet how to say no and mean it. Even a toddler tantrum runs out of steam. Might not feel like it at the time, but eventually it will stop. And the third, but I think for me, this is the most important one, and this is the one that as adults, we can take this into our lives and make real impact on people, is we borrow people's belief. And what I mean by that is, I have yet to see a child trying to learn how to walk that doesn't have at least one adult nearby going, come on, you've got this. You're so close. You can do it. So we give them our belief. We lend them our energy. And therefore, they borrow that until they can succeed. And that's probably been my biggest tip, is share our belief. Recognize that actually when somebody asks you to do a job, when somebody gives you an opportunity, at our base, none of us as human beings want to be seen to be stupid. So we're not going to give somebody that opportunity to trip them up. We're going to give them that opportunity for them to succeed, because if they succeed, we look good because we picked them. If they fail, we look bad because we picked them. So actually, when somebody gives you an opportunity, when somebody gives you a job, somebody gives you a project, it's because they believe that you can do it. So what I now do is I borrow that belief and I go, okay, you believe I can do it. I trust you more than I trust me. So I'm going to borrow your belief and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that I don't let you down. And in doing so, it's given me a real change in how I view life. But what I now do as a leader is I try and be overt with my belief. So when I give my people a role to do, or I give them an opportunity, I explain explicitly why I believe they can do it. And I ask them, even if you don't believe, borrow mine. Borrow my belief until you find your own, because I wouldn't ask you to do this if I didn't think you could. And if at any point you don't think you can, talk to me, because I'm here to make sure you're successful. And in doing so, you really get your people to unlock, because they can hold on to that belief and hopefully use it to move themselves forward.
That's a beautiful story. I really like the way how you put it together, that you acknowledge it, you have it already, then you are also asking yourself, what would other people do, and you are reflecting back. It's really, really a nice summary of, I guess, it's your life also, what happened to you, and you are taking a lot out of it. And I was thinking about one question that came to my mind, which is about self-sabotage. Is it really close to what imposter syndrome does to people? Is it the exact the same thing?
Yes, it's very similar. So a lot of people that are suffering from imposter syndrome are silently sabotaging their biggest dreams because they don't believe that they can do it. And I remember, I'll share another personal story. I was given my first coach many years ago, probably about 15, 16 years ago. And I remember sitting down with him and he said, what are your thoughts? And I was like, I'm hopeless, can't really do the job. I'm sure that's why they've brought you in, because they just haven't got the guts to tell me I can't do this. And he was like, interesting. What facts have you got to support that? And I went, well, none really. It's just a feeling. And he was like, right, okay, that's interesting. Are there any facts that you might be good at your job? And I went, no, not that I can think of, none. And he was like, right, can I give you some facts? And I was like, that'd be brilliant, because I'm at a loss. And he went, right. He said, so you're in your 4th consecutive quarter of double-digit growth. You've got the highest engaged employees in the global organization. In fact, your engagement scores are ahead of our 5-year aspiration. And you've just been given Leader of the Year for the global group. And I was like, yeah, all of those are true. He went, you still think you're hopeless? And I was like, okay, on that basis, I appreciate it doesn't sound very logical, but I can't help but tell you how I feel. And that's when he told me something that really kind of resonated. He said that Paul Stobart, who's one of the most amazing leaders that I've had the privilege to work for, and I've been privileged to work for him on more than one occasion, and I always aspired to be like him as a leader. When he gave you Leader of the Year, and I said, yeah, he said, do you think your opinion's more important than his? And I was horrified. I was like, no, of course not. Why on earth would I think that? I don't value my opinion very much at all. So why would you think I would be so disrespectful? And he went, well, actually, it's interesting because he chose to give you Leader of the Year. He believes that you, out of all the people in the organization, were the standout leader. But you've decided that your opinion, that you're hopeless, is more important and more valid than his. So, no, I don't. I hadn't realised that by not owning the compliment of getting the award, I was actually saying my opinion that I was rubbish was greater than his opinion that I'd added value, that I'd done something that was useful in the world. And so I suddenly realised that actually what I needed to do was change that and say, do you know what? If I respect you more than me, which is often the case, I'm going to borrow your opinion of me rather than continue with my own flawed opinion of me and see what happens. And made me realize that in life, what happens is we give ourselves labels. So I had to do a personal branding thing many years ago. And I recommend anybody, if you've got the time, please do this because it's eye-opening. You have to go and ask people that you know, like, and trust. So colleagues, family, and friends, and say, I really need you to be honest with me. This is because I really want to develop and be the best that I can be. Could you tell me the 1 or 2 things where you think I'm really strong, where you go, this is what I would say her strengths are? And the 1 or 2 areas where I get in my own way, where I self-sabotage so that I can better understand what I need to do. And I got the feedback, and the feedback was almost overwhelming, that you are brave and fearless. And I genuinely didn't get it. I was like, no, you're going to have to explain it to me because I don't understand where you're getting brave and fearless from. And they were like, you will literally up sticks and move to a place where you know nobody to do a job you're not convinced you can do. we would say that that's brave and fearless. So that's interesting. I thought it was flighty and a little bit stupid. But imagine how my life would differ if I borrowed the label of brave and fearless instead of flighty and a little bit stupid. So can I borrow looking at myself through their eyes rather than through mine? Because there's nicer words, to be fair. It's a nicer way of living, brave and fearless rather than flighty and stupid. So it really helps you to understand that we live in a world of polarity. For every up, there's a down. For every left, there's a right. For every time we tell ourselves we can't do it, there is somebody out there that believes that we can. We get to choose. Do we want to go with our belief that we can't? Or do we want to risk that their belief that we can is actually the most valid? And I personally prefer borrowing theirs, and it's not done me any harm. So I would say, if you are out there, if you've got dreams of something bigger, and it's that little voice inside that's saying you can't do this, what I've realized is the little voice is your inner child, and they're doing it not to sabotage. They're not trying to harm. They're not trying to hurt. They're trying to keep you safe, but they're not mature. They're still a child. And what they really need is the adult you to reach in and hold their hand and go, it's all right, I've got this. I'm here with you and we can do this. Because what's the worst that can happen? If I try and I get it wrong, I've learned one way not to do it next time. But either way, I'm closer to achieving it than I was before I started. Because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But for every one that you take, you stand a chance of winning. And, we've talked about all the people that have become great in their lives. They've become great not because they got it right once. It's not about practicing until you get it right. It's about practicing until you cannot get it wrong. And I think that's what life's about. We grow through our pain when we go through our pain. So recognize that everything is an opportunity, a blessing, or both, even if it doesn't feel like it. When it's not feeling like a blessing, ask yourself, what am I here to learn? What lesson are you teaching me? What belief are you asking me to change? And then start to build yourself labels that better serve you.
Beautiful. I was so silent because it's like a speech itself. It's very empowering and very inspiring. Today we are with this inspiring and empowering labels and all the different things that people do despite their hardships, how they are getting over it. And it's really inspiring to listen to all of you. And I'm also will be a little bit taking it to a funny side, that I was thinking that sounds like Bridget Jonesing ourselves, like a little bit. Then I will be repurposing this movie and watching it from whatever you said, and I'm like, oh, maybe she had it. Maybe she had the imposter syndrome.
She's a great example of it, because if you looked at what the other people's belief in her was, and there's a scene in it that really for me sums up how you can have such a very different view, and you externalize your view and make it everybody else's, because then it validates it and you're not being mean to yourself. But I don't know if you remember the one where she's at the bottom of the stairs and Mark Darcy's come down, and she starts to talk about the fact that, if he wants to make her feel bad and feel that she's stupid and that she's illiterate and she's inarticulate and that she's basically a hopeless spinster that should never have left the house, he didn't need to, because she feels like that all of the time. And his response was that he thought she was perfect just as she was. So exactly the same experiences happened to both of them with the same two people and the same scenarios, but their view of what happened and the opinion of the other person was so significantly different. And I think that really kind of brings to life what it's like when you're really suffering from that imposter syndrome. It feels so real to you that actually that inner voice becomes everybody you talk to. So it's no longer your voice that's talking to you. You start playing it in their words. But once you verbalize it, once you say it to them, they can see what's in your head and go, no, I don't agree with that. That's not what I think. I think the entire opposite. And that's why one of the biggest things is talk about it. It's the reason that we launched International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day, to provide free support, free advice, free resources to people to say, the first step is to talk, is to just say it to somebody, because I guarantee the minute you do, the people you say it to will go, you're joking. I thought you were really good at that. I thought, I did a speech before we went into lockdown. And I remember standing up, and I've done quite a few of them, stood up, looked at this room of people, standing room only, and there was people standing, and I was like, oh, I feel a bit sick. I don't want to be here. I don't know what I'm doing. And I stood there and I said to this audience, I meant every word of it. I said, every fibre of my body is currently telling me to get off this stage and run as fast as I can. And I can't do it for two very good reasons. The first, I don't think I could run fast in these shoes. And the second, I'd never come back from it. My name, my picture, and my company is all over the brochure. So you will always know that Kim Adele-Platts ran away. I wouldn't be able to come back from that. But what I can do is give myself permission to share with you that that's how I feel. And in doing so, hope that I shut the little voice up long enough to actually remember what I'm here to talk to you about. And then I went on and I did my speech. And I got to the end and I had people queuing to come and talk to me. I was like, really? There's not a lot going on today, is there not? And they said, you stood there in a bright red dress with bright red lipstick, looking like, and a big smile on your face, like nothing in the world ever bothers you. Like you've never had a hardship in your life. And yet when you told us that, we knew you meant it. We were like, well, if she can stand there and look that confident and get on with her speech when that's how she feels, maybe I can do whatever it is I've told myself I can't do. I said, but that's because we never know what's really going on in somebody else's life. We see what they want us to see. So I hadn't realized I've spent 3 decades creating a career where people think that I'm confident, I know what I'm doing, and I'm a leader. And I spent 3 decades feeling like an absolute imposter that was hopeless, that was going to get thrown out at any point. It's one of the reasons why I created Confidence Hacker, because I clearly have hacked my way to confidence and gone, do you know what, whenever I'm feeling nervous, I put a brighter dress on, a brighter lipstick and a bigger smile, because people see what they want to see and that's what they respond to. And so I borrow their belief that I'm confident and they treat me as if I'm confident. So it's all in that. How do we really start to change our mindset, change our labels, change what we're saying about ourselves so that it actually supports us rather than sabotages us? And I guess that's my reason for trying to share it with people, is to say, you're not alone. Even Einstein had it. So he has a quote, I always get it wrong, so forgive me, but he has a quote which says something along the lines of, the high esteem within which my works are held leave me feeling like an unlikely swindler. Somebody recognized globally as a genius doubted that he really deserved the accolades. Makes me feel better when I think, actually, while I'm doubting myself, I'm in good company. So actually, Oprah Winfrey's had it, Ellen DeGeneres, loads of people have had it. So don't feel like you're in it on your own, but talk to somebody, because I guarantee if you go and ask somebody that you trust what their opinion is of you, it will be very different from yours, but you will start to spot that there's a trend, and that can help you see the polar side to what you're telling yourself, and that can help you to step into your future.
Beautiful message, beautiful topic. And guys, if you are watching this on replay, or if you're watching it straight away right now, then please feel free to reach out to Kim Adele-Platts. She's on LinkedIn. But what are the other ways to reach out to you?
So you can get in touch, obviously, through LinkedIn. You can email me direct at kim@kimadele.org, or visit our website, which is www.mastermindset.co.uk, which is where we've got links to International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day, which will happen again on the 14th of April. So really trying to make sure that, if you need help, we've also got a free community of other people that are suffering, where we just try and help each other out and just be there to say, do you know what? You're not in it on your own. And if today you just need somebody to say, I've got your back, then actually join us.
I'm also thanking to Simfong, to Nat, your friend, I believe, and Jasmine is here, so supporting you. Thank you very much for being here. And for those who will watch this later, please play, go to the QR code and give us your aha moment of this session and also some feedback. And if you would like to connect with Kim, you can also do it through the application, and you are earning points with it because then later you can win some prizes. So thank you very much, Kim. Have a beautiful afternoon. And I was really, really happy to have you here. Please take care. Give a hug to the cutie behind you.
I will do. And bless him, forgive me for having a 9-week-old puppy in the background, but he's done an amazing job of not whimpering. So it's been a delight. Andrea, you're doing such an amazing job. Keep it going, my lovely. You're making such an impact on the world. And thank you for having me. And thanks for listening, people. I really appreciate you giving me some time.
Thank you, Kim. And we see each other anyway, and keep in touch. And for the others watching, now we are heading to Clubhouse. So if you would like to continue the conversation there, then please, we will be there for a 1.5 hour from now on. So see you there. Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.